Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast presented by the official NFL photo store. I am your host, Joe Kuzma, and today, rejoined by my other co-host, co-pilot, since I gave Terry that distinction just a day ago, the bicycle to my juju, Brian E. Roach. How you doing, man?
I don't like that analogy at all. You are not riding my back, my friend.
Oh, man. Hey, let me tell you, driving down to the Steelers game the other day, I saw like this, I don't even know what this truck had rigged up, and these things were up in the air with wheels and ratchet straps and all kind of contraptions this Yinzer had, and they were tandem bicycles. They were like, well, it's not tandem like the Double Mint commercial back in, like, I don't know, you probably remember that because you're like 100 years old. I was a baby back then, so the commercial doesn't, but it had two twins on a bike or whatever. He had like one, but he had like the bikes that they ride down at around Heinz Field and other events where you throw people on the back of it and you offer them a ride for an insane amount of money that makes absolutely no sense, as this person sweats their butt off and beats themselves into exhaustion for a small pittance. So I get accused, Brian, of talking too much about not football and being advertisements for the first 5 minutes of the program sometime last week when I was updating everyone on our programming schedule and the holidays and everything. And then somebody else asked, how many sponsors do we have? And I was like, I would love to have a whole ton of sponsors. We have one, and the one we had previously, their contract ceased just like any other advertisement. So just a little thanks for the comments. I love the feedback, people. We try not to be too corporate here, and we only have so much time and space, and we don't want to, chew your ear off with all kinds of paid spots and whatever. But we do have our one business partner with Total Sports Enterprises, and they do for us as we do for them. So we'd like to give them a nod every now and then. So we appreciate you listening, and everything has an expiration to it eventually. So we change things from time to time. I mean, dilly won't last forever,
Absolutely.
So. You can't be Juju's bike. That's kind of disappointing. But we are, even though it's now Wednesday, we are going to talk about Sunday's game. Oh, I'm sorry. Where are we in the week? I'm so lost because we're out of order. We did the WTF ahead of the game preview. We missed the week. It feels like I missed the week with the Thanksgiving and everything else. But, we're going to finally talk about a little bit of this Packers game and things moving ahead. We were a little behind just because of the Sunday night deal, and I guess they've decided, the NFL that is, that they're not going to flex the Baltimore Ravens game either. So we have a Monday night game coming up, and that'll affect our programming as much as the other Sunday night game that's going to come up with Baltimore. And then things may get a little bit back more to normal, but it's been rough going with all of these games, and the Steelers play on Christmas too, so it doesn't get any easier for anyone covering the team.
No, we all, and it's not just us, of course, the mainstream media that covers the team all would have loved to have that game flexed to 1 o'clock or even 4 o'clock. And they would have loved to have the Ravens game flexed out because it's a burden on everyone, those later games. And, but hey, it is what it is. They're playing under the lights. They play great under the lights.
Well, they play exceptional. They didn't look so good for at least a half of football with the Green Bay Packers on Sunday, and that's what we're going to today. Brett Hundley, of course, looked a lot better than I thought I would ever expect, and you're the one who said it, okay? Give yourself a pat on the back, a self-high five. You said if the Packers would be able to run the football, the Steelers would have problems.
I did. And, look, I'll give props to that, to Peter Bukowski, who joined us for the pre-game podcast. And, I had talked to him about what kind of running game the Packers had. And, he had stressed they have a lot of outside zone runs. Now, the thing is, they ran some outside zone on us that worked, but they were also able to run the ball up the gut on us, which surprised me. But that run opens up the pass for them. If they aren't having that success running the ball, I don't think you see quite as many breakdowns in the Steelers secondary. I don't think you see, the mistakes that got made that allowed Brett Hundley to, throw more touchdown passes in one game than he has all season. It's the run opened things up for them very nicely and allowed them to cause us problems.
Yeah, and there's a few hot button topics coming out of this, and I guess the one I'm going to address here, since Terry and I forgot on our checklist, was a WTF of Ben Roethlisberger running the football. That was not only surprising. I mean, I cringe every time I see him do it, but 3 attempts, 25 yards, including a 14-yard little dash there that made him look like Alex Smith in one of those sack races. Because Alex Smith's pretty deceptively quick for a QB, or take anybody, Russell Wilson, throw them in one of those the sack race things, the burlap sack or whatever you call those, and that's what Ben looks like. He looks like he's running in quicksand, which, by the way, I saw a great meme on the internet like last week. Like, when you were a kid, were you terrified of quicksand? Because it seemed like everything you ever watched, whether it was the old Adam West Batman or something, everybody encountered quicksand. And it just made me think of that, of course, with Ben running. He is slow as molasses, I think, is what my mother would say. And she says a lot of dumb things. So I think one of the other ones, too, Ben throws the ball 45 times, and all of a sudden people are like, well, why aren't they running the ball with Le'Veon Bell? Le'Veon Bell had 95 yards on 20 carries, which is beyond exceptional. But then when Ben was throwing the ball, 12 of his 45, and the other 10, of course, to Antonio Brown, but 12 to Bell, which I think was a record. Bell is breaking like every record that Franco Harris has ever had. He's in the 5,000 club now. There were all kinds of milestones. Antonio Brown's just climbing the ranks too. So this was still a good day. The Steelers' offense was pretty good, barring the turnovers. You don't see Bell fumble the ball too often. And you had some stuff to say about Ben's interceptions, because they weren't like entirely all on him either.
No, the first interception, I mean, when you look at it, that's just a really good play. I mean, Ben put the ball pretty much where it needed to be for Eli to get it. And Randall just makes a great play on that ball. It certainly isn't anything wrong with the throw. I can't even really criticize Eli for not fighting for it. But it's just a great play. And sometimes the other guys make plays. They get paid too.
No. In fact,
do.
Randall
it's
almost
true.
He almost didn't catch that.
No, he almost didn't. And, it was a tough play. He managed to keep the ball under control. He bobbled it quite heavily, but, he got it. He got it back in before, it didn't hit the ground. So it's an interception. The second one, that's not on Ben, in my opinion. That's on Chris Hubbard. As an ex-lineman, and Zach Meckler would say the same thing, Hubbard releases the guy who tips that pass. He's doing pass blocking, and while I admit sometimes it's hard to keep engaged when you're pass blocking because you're kind of on your heels, but he releases, and the defender gets up, tips the ball. Part of your responsibility as a pass blocker is to keep contain on those defensive linemen, keep contact with them so they can't get those daggone big paws up in the air and do what they did. Ben's releasing the ball. The guy gets up in the lane. It's tipped up. From that point, it's anybody's guess what's going to happen. It gets picked off. So I don't, unlike the Jacksonville game with the 5 interceptions where there were tipped balls and there were mistakes by receivers who were not quite in sync with Ben yet, and maybe one of those was really on Ben. They kept things under control here. Nobody panicked, and they continued to play the way they had been playing towards the end of the Titans game, and really throughout this game. Ben was victimized by drop passes consistently. He could have had an 80% completion day had every ball that was, fumbled in the hands of the receivers actually been, possessed. He could have had 80% completion. He looked really good. The passes were sharp. And like I said, those 2 ints, I kind of can forgive him. Hey, you throw 4 TDs and 2 ints, I'll take that ratio every time.
Yeah, and the +3 in the Packers' favor doesn't do the Steelers any justice. That's why the game was as close as it was. Now, I understand the defense, hey, do this or do that. They did an excellent job, probably about midway through the third quarter beyond, because I mean they gave up only like one drive. The Steelers were down, I think, 21-14 at one point, and really needed the defense to make a stop. And it was it's one of the things I'm going to highlight maybe in an article. It may even be up on the site by the time you hear this, because I wanted to pull some film on it. There were a couple of men who just took over when they needed to. One of those men was Cam Hayward, one of your horsemen that you love. He was pretty much unstoppable. Speaking of unstoppable, Ben the AB, by the way, jogged my memory. I think somebody put out there that he had a perfect quarterback rating going to Antonio Brown. And if any of you get a chance to go back and look at the 2-point conversion, Ben bails him out on a 2-point conversion here too. Ben is looking at Antonio Brown, I think, almost the whole way, and it was just like, Antonio, just run around in circles and I'll throw it to you when you're open. And that's pretty much what it looked like. It looked like somebody had a joystick and they were just hitting it side to side. He just looked like a weeble wobble or something like that. But anyways, Cam Hayward, as you said, and still PG language, grown ass man. So he was a force. Mike Hilton also in on that. And then, of course, I know there's some people who are critical of different things, but TJ Watt. There's two drives here between, I think it's the near the end of the third quarter and the final drive. You have TJ Watt, not only with the sack at one point, Cam Hayward comes up with a big sack on a third down. You needed 3 and outs, and they got it. And they had TJ Watt at one point, man coverage on Jordy Nelson. And I'm going to point this out because you have a linebacker on at least a former Pro Bowl type wide receiver, somebody that's maybe regarded as one of the best in the league. I don't know where Jordy's stats stand now as far as being there with Hundley at quarterback. But when he has Aaron Rodgers at the helm, he's a threat. And TJ, man coverage, I'm going to say that again because that seems to be a thing that people love to stick on. Man coverage on Jordy Nelson and breaks up passes. And we're talking about this internally because there's people who we're talking about Bud Dupree being a bust. They're talking about TJ Watt maybe not being just being okay, and he's a rookie. People I think forget that he's a rookie. We're seeing TJ and Bud drop into coverage a lot. We're seeing Tuitt. Whenever Hargrave does get out there, he hit about 30% of the snap share, and a lot of that was you got to take him off the field because Green Bay, they even did empty set. We even saw the Steelers open up with empty set, which was interesting to start the game. But more or less, this system with Keith Butler operates. So we've seen this. We've heard this pointed out even on TV in case you missed it. Cam Hayward doesn't lead the team in sacks if this is Dick LeBeau's defense. It just didn't work that way back then.
Absolutely not. And I want to highlight that series that you're talking about with TJ. I mean, that was a point. It's third quarter, and the Packers they get the ball back after an interception or the fumble, Le'Veon Bell's fumble. Mm-hmm. You have a series where they start to move the ball, then all of a sudden, LT Walton gets a sack. TJ does a fantastic job manning up on Jordy Nelson, like you said, and then Cam Hayward gets another sack, and we get the ball back. Or we don't. It's those two sacks and that pass cause a 57-yard field goal attempt. Yes, missed by Crosby, which I don't know why they bothered to try, but they did, and I'll take a malarkey of an explanation, but that was a huge series, and I think the defense kind of fed off of that to a certain extent because they played a little better. Yes, they still had some breakdowns. They did allow another score. But it kept the Steelers in the game, and I'm going to stop calling Cam Hayward a grown ass man, and I'm just going to call him what he is, which is an All Pro,
elite is what we should be saying.
An elite level All Pro.
I still don't
not Pro Bowler.
All Pro, yeah.
Don't care about the Pro Bowl.
No.
He's an All Pro.
He needs the recognition.
Best he is at what he does.
You know what? I put something out on the site with one of those sacks, And I said the same thing. The guy, and he deserves recognition. But Dupree said the same thing. He was quoted as saying he should be a Pro Bowler. And I said that's not good enough for Hayward. And I was just trying to pull it up. I had that series because LT Walton only played 3 snaps in that entire game, and he gets a sack on one of them, which is just incredible if you see the way he moves and contains off of the side. And Hundley, they made this adjustment, and Hundley couldn't recognize what the heck was going on out there. You get TJ Watt in the middle of the defense. Is he going to blitz? And then you see he ends up coming in later. He flies in, makes an awareness play, and the secondary ends up covering. I think it's one of the tight ends. I can't remember if it was Richard Rodgers or who. You could see them in the help, and he zooms in full speed, almost Ryan Shazier-like, and nearly takes Hundley's head off. Not quite literally, because we had this discussion about the article that somebody wrote in like San Diego or something about saying, oh, it was a dirty hit and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, it wasn't. It really wasn't. They want it flagged. And it's just like, yeah, I don't always agree when people say take the skirts off the players, but that's one of the ones where it's like, geez, man, it's like, what do you want? You do want them to play flag football if you see it that way. It's just a Steelers hater is all it is. But yeah, Cam leads the team in sacks now. Another double-digit sack game or not double digits, but multiple sack game. If he gets double digits. Who was that? It was the guy with the Falcons that had like a ridiculous amount of sacks in like
6 or 7 sacks in one game against the Cowboys.
11 or something. Yeah. It was just but yeah, and this is the thing that like hurts me. The Steelers are second in the league in sacks. They did not have the benefit of getting like 10 in one game like the Jaguars did on the Ravens over in London. Hayward has 9, Vince Williams has 6, an inside linebacker no less. I don't remember a time maybe where James Ferrier or one of these guys, Larry Foote was a second in a team in sacks. Maybe they were, and my memory's just foggy. You always think of the outside linebackers, and they're there, they're hanging and banging. You got TJ with 5, you got Bud with 4, and Anthony Chickalo has 3. It's not like, they're not doing their job. So I kind of want to quell that a little bit. And everybody's like, oh, well, Bud Dupree does this and that. The thing that still hurts the team the most, and I think it's a league-wide problem, is the missed tackles. And we see big plays. And there was a lot of big plays in this one that were given up. I don't know how you correct them. Mike Mitchell came out and took some of the blame, I think, tried to take the blame off of Artie Burns. More warranted or not, you get sick of seeing them cross in the coverage and tackling each other instead of the opponent. And then there was another big play, I think it was Jamal Williams, where nobody was prepared to tackle him. There were 3 big plays. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling, I'm looking for them because I have them here. Let me see. Devontae Adams, 55-yard long. Jamal Williams, 54, and Randall Cobb, 39. Those are the ones that got to stop. Somebody said that they hadn't given up, I think, like any big play or only one big play when Joe Hayden was out there. So there's a little bit of truth into needing Joe Hayden over maybe Cody Sensabaugh, or maybe they're picking on Artie Burns. And this wasn't Artie's sharpest game, so I'm not going to say, hey, take all the blame off of him. He clearly missed the one assignment. I think it was like a post route underneath or something that he went with. Took the guy on the inside instead of the guy that was out on the outside of the numbers, and that's what led to the one big play.
Yeah, well, and I'm gonna say something about that the first pass, which should never have happened, because 2 plays before that, Stephon Tuitt breaks through the line, sacks Hundley. 3rd and 5, all of a sudden we're getting the ball back, except for the phantom hands to the face call by the refs.
Artie Burns.
The phantom hands for the case call. Yeah, on Artie Burns. Now, I've been critical of Artie. I've been critical in the back rooms of SCU. I've been critical in some of what I've written. He to me, he's regressed this year, which is a bad sign because his second year is expected to be a big advancement year. Tomlin says that all the time. He expects growth out of these guys in the second year, and I haven't seen it. I'm not nowhere near considering him a bust. I think he's got tons of talent. He's still extremely young. He came out of school early. There's still plenty of time for this ship to be righted and for him to be a much better cornerback than he's shown. But in this instance, I don't think Artie Burns had an illegal hands to the face penalty.
No.
When I've looked at that, reviewed it over and over again, I think the refs need anatomy lessons on top of rulebook lessons, because if anything, he hit the guy in the lower neck, and that's not the face.
I think Ed
and I don't even
Hockley,
think he hit that.
Ed Hockley's vision was obstructed by his large, massive arms.
Well, he also just needed to get camera time. He hadn't had any camera time yet. He needed to get on camera because, Ed Hockley loves the sound of his own voice, and he loves to be on camera. But, so if that bizarro call doesn't occur to save the Packers after Tuitt has blown them up, then that first touchdown pass never happens. If that first touchdown pass never happens, it could be a completely different game. If you can get up 2 scores on these guys, you forget about the run. You're no longer worried about them trying to run the ball, and Artie and Cody Sensabaugh don't get as aggressive. I think they also have some hangover from last week's game with all the picks. They were overly aggressive on routes, trying to jump things. It worked last week. It didn't work this week.
You'll have some of that, and
yeah.
I don't know. People are always worried. The elephant in the room. You may have heard me say that once or twice. Like I said, now all of a sudden the buzzwords back out. It's pretty cool though. Like, not to toot our own horn here, but it's like it's cool to be right more often than we're wrong. We're certainly wrong just as much as anybody else too, but everyone's worried about the New England Patriots, and I think they're worried about coming to Pittsburgh, to be completely honest. They're looking at it, they're talking about it, and nobody's lying, and I think the defense will be fine. And I know Terry is chomping at the bit. She's been blowing up my phone all day, we want an update on Joe Hayden, and seriously, we're hearing that he's walking around without any noticeable pain already, and that doesn't mean he's going to be ready for the Bengals, because I think Tomlin still had no commitment in the press conference to even comment about Joe Hayden's progress. But originally, the timetable that Terry put out there, being the expert she is, was like 3 or 4 weeks, which would have put him at about early would be New England. The following week for Christmas would be a Christmas gift to get Joe Hayden back. So there's possibility. And maybe he's playing Belichick, doing a little Belichicking over there, and not being full, what do you want to say? I don't know, because like as somebody said it, and maybe it came from Bouchette or somebody else that said, when coaches give you coach speak, then you yell that they give you coach speak. But then when they don't, and they address something like the Patriots, and it's like, go back to talking like a coach, you know what I mean? And being only focused on this one thing. So I think there could be a little bit of mind games there. Maybe I'm being cautiously optimistic about him being available. I hope just that he's there for the postseason, but it may come down to this Patriots game coming up. And we could kick back around to that in a moment, Brian, but I wanted to bring up, I think we hit everybody on the defense. I don't think there's anyone else that definitely needs recognition or scolded or anything of that nature. Shazier came off for a couple plays that he was okay, ankle or knee or whatever it was. I think that was precautionary. So nothing there. Offensively, Chris Hubbard, he did what he did. They had Gerald Hawkins get his first playing time ever, the 4th rounder from last year. He took Hubbard's spot in the jumbo packages. He only saw the field 5 times, as did Rosie Nix. So it wasn't a power football deal. The Steelers are passing the ball now, and part of that component is the return of someone who saw their most playing time since week 1. And no, I'm not talking about Eli Rogers, because he was in on that mix too, but I'm talking about Martavis Bryant, who also made an impact on the very first play of the game with the kickoff return. He was back there because Juju Smith-Schuster was inactive for the game. It's kind of frightening to think now if Ben and Bryant are getting on the same page. Now, I know he had a drop, but so did Bell, so did everybody else practically in that game. It's a scary thought to think if the Steelers are getting Bryant back on that same page and then add Juju or Vance McDonald back into this mix, holy smokes, maybe the Patriots might be terrified to come to Heinz Field.
Yeah, look, it's the Patriots defense is last in the league. Dead last. Now I know they've showed some improvement, and they will improve. They're not going to stay last, but they're dead last in the league. And they have played some quality opponents with halfway decent defenses, and they have been able to score, but they also barely beat the Jets. So I don't think it's unrealistic to think this isn't the same Patriots team that has been the thorn in the Steelers' side in past years. And you're absolutely correct. If Ben and Martavis start to get on the same page, if Juju is back in there and AB is there, and Bell, if you've got Bell, Juju, Martavis, and Antonio Brown, and they're all working together as a unit, man, that has to send some little chills down Bill Belichick's spine, and maybe even make him cry little Belichick tears at night when no one else is around and he's sitting in his closet thinking about the Steelers.
Does he wear his hoodie to sleep?
I think so. I think that it never comes off, but it's a different team, and we're starting to see this offense become the offense we expected it to be. Some of the pieces aren't the pieces we thought originally. We liked Juju's pick, but we thought Eli Rogers was going to have a breakout year. He's not. He has regressed heavily, in my view. But Juju has come forward and been just a shining light that nobody remotely expected, and Ben and him are connecting. Bell is starting to become Le'Veon of old, and AB and Ben are just AB and Ben. Ben's playing like Ben. So once this offense gets rolling, I'll live with some drops in the first quarter and even in the first half, as long as they pick it up in the second half the way they've been doing over the past few games. It's a 40-point night and a 31-point night, and we'll see what happens next week, with the Bengals and the Ravens. If they can win those two games, that locks the division up, and that puts them in great shape. There's no excuse. There's no reason to think the Patriots aren't doing the same thing that Tomlin said and going and circling that game on their calendar and going, that's the game. That's the one that we have to worry about.
Yeah, and they still have to worry about everything up until that point, too, or else there won't be as much to worry about and won't be as much on the line, and the Patriots have to do the same thing as well. So speaking of photo finishes, and I was talking special teams, we'll talk about Chris Boswell in a second, but the official NFL photo store is a sponsor of the Steel City Underground podcast. So, folks, if you're still doing some holiday shopping over there, we have a special promo code for you to use over on the official NFL photo store. You can find the link by going to our website at steelcityunderground.com/photos. The promo code is Steel City, all one word. It's good one time, and it's good almost through the rest of the year to take 25% off any official quality photo, canvas, or metal print, and they add new photos every week, including, I imagine, Chris Boswell being carried out on everyone's shoulders because he had us incredibly nervous after missing an extra point to start the game with their first touchdown, and now he's going to attempt a career long. I think I've been saying career high. That's because I've been on a high, and somebody corrected me. I said, yeah, okay, semantics, career long, because kickers don't kick it up in the air, apparently. Right. So it can't be a high or the numbers. The number it's the longest he's ever kicked, and it ties the longest that anyone's ever kicked in the building. 53 yards. I was trying to remember, and I still can't remember, and I forgot to look it up for today. Was it Jeff Reed that had the 53? Reed. Okay. Yep. For some reason I thought it was Dan Bailey. I know Dan Bailey nailed like a 50-some yarder last year, I think, at Heinz Field. So he had a long attempt. I think because I was actually quite. I was quite surprised. Yeah. I was quite surprised by it, believe it or not. So, and Boswell, he has all kind of stats and stuff too. He did a stats article on all these different things that people broke, and including his somewhat franchise history-making day or whatever you want to call it. But ice in his veins. Terry was happy. She got to call him a killer bee. I let her do it. So,
look, if you kick a 53-yard field goal in Heinz Field with 4 seconds left to win a game, you're a killer bee.
Well, that was part of the photo finish I was talking about. I almost want to call it the official NFL photo store photo finish because someone pointed out correctly, you kind of forget in the whole grand scheme of things, the Steelers get the ball with 1:38 left, an incomplete pass to AB, another incomplete pass intended for Eli Rogers in that series, and another one to Martavis Bryant. There were 3 incompletions and just cold. This wasn't the Ben Roethlisberger completing everyone and marching them down the field. I'm sorry, they got it back with they had a minute 50 left, and Bell actually got a first down, 10-yard run on the very first play. So it was 2 pages here. I couldn't see the other page. So my bad. But they end up going the next 3 plays out, punting it. Green Bay gets the ball with a minute 20 left. Our defense steps it up. TJ Watt with the aforementioned sack. They lose 6 yards. Shazier shuts down Jamal Williams for 3, and Jamal Williams up the middle again for 4. And I guess maybe Mike Tomlin uses his first time out there. I don't know if Mike McCarthy and the powers that be, Dom Capers and all the coaches of Green Bay thought, oh, our defense has this in the bag, or what they were thinking there. But they didn't move the ball much. I guess they just didn't want to turn it over. Instead, the Steelers end up getting the ball on their own 30, which, fantastic. 53-yard punt. Antonio Brown only gets 2 yards off of the return. Steelers have 17 seconds. You got to be feeling pretty good about your chances of going to OT and maybe some sudden death or turnover situation, that we've seen in the past where things end on an instant. And all of a sudden, Ben connects with his, Antonio Brown can do anything, literally. 23-yard, you can't even call it a circus catch. It's, I guess you just call it perfection or a masterpiece. It's more like a painting when you see it, poetry in motion. And then he gets AB again for 14 and go 37 yards. And, of course, Bell loses 2. I think they were just trying to get something for position, run a little more off the clock in order to have that photo finish for Boswell with the 53-yarder. So that's a dangerous thing, man. 17 seconds, and they march from their own 30 down to Green Bay's 33, and ends up being on the 35 to put them in position for a game-winning field goal. Unbelievable. Killer bees all the way around.
Absolutely. It's, and it's not just the catch. The catch itself was a beautiful thing. But that ball has to be, it's the combination of those 2 guys. It's Ben and his accuracy when he's throwing to AB, putting the ball where AB can do the things he can do. He shredded. He just shredded the Packers soft zone that they were playing. They had safeties high, they had linebackers underneath, and AB was finding the soft spots in there, and Ben is going over the backers who are too close and under the safeties who are too far back, and he's hitting AB perfectly. It was that last series, even though it only results in a field goal, it's still a game-winning field goal, and it's still Ben's 41st game-winning drive, and it just was a thing of beauty. It was fun to see, even though, as I wrote in the Good, Bad, and Ugly, it may have caused me to soil my armor.
Well, the last thought I have about the Steelers and Packers, at least for today, is there was a gentleman, I assume he's a gentleman, I've never met him, Devon House, who made a visit to the Pittsburgh Steelers during the free agency period earlier this year. And this was going to be one of several cornerbacks who visited with the team and was going to be the savior of the secondary. Lo and behold, no one knew Joe Hayden was going to hit the market. And when he did, a lot of people already spent their money. So Devon House in the Steelers' house signs with Green Bay before the visit's even over. I wonder if he was rethinking that whole scenario. I'm sure a lot of people forgot about it, and even myself, I did. But he started on Sunday. He was out there, and now Devon House got to see what it was like. A little bit of maybe payback there. I mean, that's a stretch, but it's just like I wonder really what he was thinking. That was his next flight to Pittsburgh. He hadn't been back, so. Not on the right, didn't leave this time on the right side of things.
As they say, karma is a harsh mistress.
Yes, we don't.
I avoided the other word.
Yeah, and you know what? My 4-year-old daughter loves this Taylor Swift song, and it has some lyric about I don't worry about drama. All I think about all day is karma, and there you have it. So I probably butchered the lyrics because I don't listen to Taylor Swift. So I do have a soft side in me, though. I'll put it on for my daughter so she could jam out in the car. Sings along, 4 years old already. Bless her heart. Maybe she'll be on America's Got Talent in 2 years. I don't know. I couldn't do that to her. So I don't want to hear you sing it either, Brian. So I think we'll cut off right here. Thanks for joining me again, buddy. The dynamic duo back in business here, where it is booming.
Absolutely. Who's Taylor Swift?
Ah, well played, my friend. Well played. So, folks, bring on the hate mail, because you know what? I really do want to hear some of your thoughts, especially about the Steelers offense, the Steelers defense. It's almost like the script is flipped. Mike Palaia wrote that the pendulum is swinging. It's swinging one way for the offense, swinging the other way for the defense. Hey, you know what? I'll take it. One side has a good game. One side has half a good game. So until next time, fan mail at steelcityunderground.com or 203-900-4728 is our hotline number. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. Be safe. Be good. We'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.